Hi gang. Okay, so over here on the right side of the frame of Maggie, you can see some work that was done by Kane Motorcars before I picked up the car on repairing this right side cross member. They did extensive work on the frame repairs and also on places like the cross member, which is really part of the frame. Over on the left side, they must have concluded that the left side cross member was good enough to leave alone or pass inspection, or maybe they just figured they did enough work for me because they did a lot of work for the amount of money I paid them. At any rate, when I got in here doing my work on the left side sill, I noticed a hole over here in the frame. Since I'm over in the area anyway, let's see, there it is. Whoops, I'm sorry about that. There it is. And I've cleaned it out and made it rectangular. And so I'm going to patch that. So while I was doing that, I was looking over here on the other side of this same cross member, and I saw, I'm kind of doing this upside down while I'm videoing this, so I hope you can see it, a whole bunch of damage in here. Now it's still solid. I can bang on it so I can see why they might not have repaired it, especially if they were running out of authorizations for hours to repair this stuff. And so I'm going to repair it. What I've done is I've cleaned it up quite a bit. I'm going to move the camera around again so I can see what I'm showing you. Okay. So here's the cross member, and going over the top here and looking down, in this area here, there was an old piece of what, I don't know, somebody had a repair in there before, between this new floorboard rail, which was put in by Kane Motorcar, and the remains of the original frame cross member in here. And there was a piece of steel in here, so I had to get in there and cut that out. It took a lot of hours with a very thin cutting tool to clean it out, because it would have interfered with my welding, having a piece of, half decent, half rusty piece of steel that was kind of stuck in there from some previous repair. So I had to grind that out of there using a cutoff tool. I had to use I tried grinding it as much as I could from the top and the bottom, but once I had to get inside here, I really had to get a thin cutoff wheel, 4-inch cutoff wheel, got it in there from underneath and also from top, and I pretty much ground away and cut away this leftover piece of metal that was sitting in there. It took a couple hours of futzing around there, at least a couple hours. So I've cleaned it all up, and I'm in the process of cutting a very sturdy piece, which is going to go along this back edge here and cover all the holes that are there. Now, here's the pattern I made to cover the piece. It's going to go in there like that. Whoops. That's the way it's going to go in there. I've had these other cutouts here for 2 flanges because I want to not only weld this replacement piece into the frame here, but I want to have these little flanges come out and touch this piece here, which is the front section floorboard support. Just since there's a gap there, I'm going to weld it across the gap, and I can't fill that much space with just weld. So I'm going to bend a little piece, like a little flange, out of this repair piece and weld across to it. Now this stuff is going to be made out of, I forget the gauge number, but it's 105 thousandths. So it's way thicker than the steel I usually use. And the advantage of that is that it'll be very strong, and it's also very easy to weld. This is not, well, some of these parts of this are very thick, and I'm still going to have to be careful I don't blow new holes through it, but the thicker stuff welds much easier than the really thin sheet metal on the rest of the body of the car. So I'm going to use a heavy piece, which makes it much more time consuming to cut out of steel using a grinding wheel. And I'm in the process of getting that thing ready now, and I'm hoping I'm going to be able to bend these 2 little flange pieces that I have here and here without too much trouble. The last time I worked on steel this heavy was for the to repair the right rear spring, leaf spring bracket, because I wanted that also to be very heavy steel. And I had quite a bit of trouble just putting a 45-degree bend in that, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to bend these little flanges that will connect the cross member here over to the floor support. It's not really necessary to connect them, but I'm going to try to do it, make it all that much stronger. Okay, here's a better view of that cross section, that cross member that I'm repairing, viewed from the other side of it, from the front of the car. So you can see I'm going to lay a flat piece across all of this in this area to cover these holes, weld it up here at the top and also down below it at the bottom, plus the 2 tabs that go from here across this little gap to this floor support, you know, flush with the floor support. So that's what I'm attempting to do. We'll see how it comes out. Okay, this is just a quick thing that I'm not sure I've covered before. Here's most of this steel piece that was made from this pattern for the cross member repair, cut out of 105,006 steel. And I'm not quite finished. You can see my markings here. And I've got to cut this notch out and then leave it, have it go a little deep so that I'll have a little area to bend over. That's one of my flanges. That's this one. And then another similar one over here that I haven't cut through yet. And I've also got a notch over here because when I was clearing out some of that old metal, there was a little bit, I just couldn't reach it. And so I'm just going to cut a notch out of this and have it sit around it. Now when I cut pieces like this out, what I found to be the most effective for me, since I don't have a lot of heavy-duty saws or band saws or anything like that, is I'm just using a tool like this, which is a 3-inch cutoff tool that I got from Harbor Freight. It costs like $20. And these little 3-inch grinding cutoff wheels, go through them pretty quickly. This one is 1/16 thick. They have a thicker one, which I haven't been using. They're pretty rugged. So I've already gone through one of these, burned it out a couple weeks ago, so this one's a new one. They get pretty hot, especially when you're trying to cut through fairly thick steel like this. The little steel, they go through like butter. So that's what I've been using. I can see pretty well with it. It's got a nice shield for sparks. You got to wear goggles and gloves and a mask while you're cutting them. But that's how I cut out all these pieces. It's time consuming. But it works for somebody that doesn't have a lot of heavy-duty tools in the shop. Okay, so after a couple of hours of careful fitting and fidgeting and then painting the surfaces with weld-through primer, I've got a pretty good fit. I'm going to give it a shot to put a few tack welds to hold this in place on the top, and I'll do a couple of tacks on the bottom and proceed from there to get this thing welded into place. Okay, this is the front side of that cross member, and if you recall, I had a hole in here. That hole has been filled in with a little patch piece and a butt weld in here. Here is that completed repair of the left side cross member inside the cockpit that was all full of holes before, and now it's ready to go for painting.